Hey, this is Miss A, the SLP. I am just hopping on today because I want to talk about what happens if your internship is going bad. I would love to think all you SLPs out there that you are like, oh my gosh, it's great. I love it. And sometimes it's that way, but sometimes it's not what we think. And it's important because the therapy world is so small that you end it as well as you can. So I have a couple of steps for that will help if you are in an internship that's not quite what you think it was going to be and what you could do about it. So the first thing is breathe. Everyone's emotions are on 10. I remember being a student and that feeling that I wanted to do a good job and I really wanted my supervisor to know that I knew what I was talking about. And sometimes we can want to do a good job so bad that it comes across as like defensive, or it comes across as like, I know for me sometimes if I want to do a good job, like intensely, when someone gives me feedback, I take it and I'm mad at myself, but it almost sometimes looks like I'm mad at the person giving it to me. And so I have to be really aware of how I come across. Now, do we do things for emotion or to make people feel more comfortable? Not necessarily, but always remember when you're in a conversation, when you're in an interaction, there are a couple things going on. You are having a conversation with yourself, that person's having a conversation with themselves, and then you two are interacting. Okay. So, first, breathe. And like sometimes I'm like, did they mean to snap at me? Or did they mean to say it in a bad way? And so sometimes I just like to take a beat to be sure that it's not something I've done or something that is, I'm just maybe taking the wrong way. I want to say that with a grain of salt. I am not asking you to be a doormat. I'm not saying that you should be, well, just roll over and take abuse. I'm saying in almost everything I do, and what I have found to be great is that I always like to look inward first before I say, you did it. I like to turn it back to me and say, okay, how did I come to this situation? Because if I've had a bad morning, if I had a fight with my partner, my dog is not doing well, or for whatever reason I'm overwhelmed, maybe I said it something in a way that didn't quite jive either. Does that make sense? I think sometimes people hurt us, but we always have to remember we hurt people too. And so you want people to give you grace when you do something. So you want to do the same for other people. All right. So if you've done that and you're like, no, this is still bad, Adrian, it's really, really bad. I hate to go. I feel this pit in my stomach when I pull up to the parking lot. I can't sleep at night. The first thing you need to do is start documenting. I'm not saying document it here. I'm saying document it on your phone, document it in your journal. And that is going to do two things. That's going to, first of all, the act of writing something out and how it occurred to you gets it out of your brain so you're not replaying it in your head. But it also starts to establish whether there's a pattern of bad behavior or anything like that, or abuse. And then you can start to document it. Now, there have been some times I'm like, this was horrible and I can't believe they did this. But then when I write it out, I was like, oh, that was really just a snap. That wasn't anything egregious. But I had to write that out. But sometimes, because we also teach young therapists, new therapists, you got to pay your dues, you got to do this. I want you to know you don't have to take abuse. You don't have to take anything like that. So it's like you have to find that balance. Am I being used, or is something not ethical going on here, or is this just not a good fit? And sometimes writing it out, documenting can help you see that, but it also backs you up if you have to talk to your university professor or supervisor, or talk to your actual supervisor. Okay. So then the next thing is ask for a meeting. And when I say ask for a meeting, sometimes it's not a big deal. Sometimes it's not like a, can we meet? It's more like, hey, do you mind if we just have a chat? And because feelings are high, especially during this time in the school year, if your supervisor has kids, if you're in a school placement or a placement with kids, this is the busiest time of the year, and it's very stressful. So you want to be sure that when you have this meeting, you can say without being overly emotional what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And don't say you don't want to use words like you're making me feel or you're doing this. I feel like you do not believe in my clinical skills. Can you tell me what I can do or how I can make this placement more smooth? Because I feel like there are bumps, and I think we're on the same page that we both want, we both want me to be the best SOP I can be, and we both want you, the kids or your patients, to have great care. So can you give me some specifics, and then maybe you can speak to it and then I can speak to it if there needs to be clarification. A lot of times it's just like you're both coming from the right place, but it's just not clear. And so I will give you just one thing on a supervisor side, y'all. I've supervised a couple of students, and I had a couple of CFs, and it feels like on your end that your supervisor is kicking up their heels. Like I've heard people say this, they kicked up their heels and they didn't do anything. I just feel like having a student is very stressful for the supervisor. We're happy to help. We want the field to continue. We want all of those things to happen, but it does take work on our end for you to be in the building. So don't think that it's like a vacation for us. There are always going to be great supervisors and not so great. If you've gotten one that's not so great, we try to make the best of it and move on. I always say if it's that not great, then you need to let someone know either at the end so no one else is placed there. But I find it to be stressful because here's what I'm thinking. I want this person to have a good experience. I want them to love the field. I want them to learn as much as they can before they go out on their own. And so I want to give feedback. And sometimes in my experience, I feel like it doesn't always look like my supervisees want the feedback. You only want, yeah, you're doing a great job. But a good supervisor is going to tell you when you're doing a great job, but also tell you what you can do to improve, because that's what makes you a great therapist. All right. And then the last thing is, by all means, try to end well. So if you've done that, you've documented, you've had a meeting, make sure on your end you're doing all the right things. Documentation, coming to work on time, dressed appropriately, all of those things. But if it's not working, try to end well. And at the end, be sure to say thank you. Sometimes just a thank you, I really appreciate it, I wish you the best, goes such a long way. So that's it for what to do if you are in a great internship, or a bad internship rather. You're going to breathe, you're going to document, you're going to ask for a meeting and or feedback, and then you're going to try to end well. All right, well, have a great one.